Good evening, and welcome to Kevin Toll Reads. I believe this is about take 5 on this one. It's been a struggle today, but we are talking book review of Lisey's Story by Stephen King. Yes, I did it. Done with all of Stephen King's works, and that feels really good. Lisey's Story was published in 2006. The summary of this book really revolves around Lisey Landon and the passing of her husband, Scott Landon, who was a famous writer. They were married roughly over 25 years, and this is kind of an introspective look of Lisey's life with Scott in flashbacks and pieces, but it's also kind of uncovering some things. And you also have thrown in people that are trying to get their hands on Scott's, unfinished work or partial work after his passing, and how Lisey handles all that. There's definitely a supernatural element to all of this as well. Dark Tower references as well. And so that's really the summary of it. It's hard really to summarize this book because I'm not a fan. I'm just going to be honest with you. In terms of likes, though, I liked, and again, we're going to get into some spoilers here, so FYI, I liked the Zach McCool character. We needed conflict to have a 500-page book where we're just talking about bits and pieces and some supernatural elements and how was Scott's childhood and uncovering that. I mean, that definitely had some conflict and kept my interest, but at the same time, like, there wasn't enough meat to carry the story, so we had to have some conflict with other characters. Zach McCool was a good one. There is Dark Tower references. This is definitely a Dark Tower story in the sense that it connects to the multiverse. There's references and so some of those, one of the favorites that King likes to drop in there is the mention of the blue chambray work shirt, and so that was made mention. You also have Scott's world. So the supernatural element revolves around the fact that Scott kind of created this world, and they have this shared vernacular, Lisey and Scott, and where he kind of, explains to her what the Bools and the Icknucks and the Blood Bools are, and, his backstory about his growing childhood with his overbearing and his father and his brother Paul and everything that transpires with that. And so they have this world where they go where that Scott can, re-energize himself and get his health back, whether it's physical and mental. But at the same time, he pulls a lot of his ideas from there as well, which is why he's so successful as an author as well. So you have that. I mean, their ability to transport themselves into this other reality is Dark Tower. Lisey also makes a statement in the book where she talks about Scott's passing to someone and talks about that he was he was headed out to the territories, and that's definitely a reference to Traveling Jack from the Talisman and Black House. So another thing too, I really liked is you have the catchphrase. When I was talking about some of the vernacular that Scott and Lisey have throughout the story, some of it's kind of quirky and over the top, but some of it I liked. And one of it was when they have that catchphrase of strapping it on, which is basically their way of saying, putting your big boy pants on, you got to toughen up type thing. And I enjoyed that. I thought that was interesting. You needed that because they had that dynamic as husband and wife. I also liked the fact that you had some homage to Norris Ridgwick, who was the deputy in Needful Things, and now he's the sheriff in Castle Rock, which is around the area between Castle Rock and Derry that this story takes place. Now, in terms of dislikes, the introspective look from Lisey's perspective and Scott is pretty boring. It really is. I think also too, I'm just kind of over the fact that King just loves to write about authors, and he's done it so many times that I'm just kind of over it. Amanda, who is Lisey's sister, and she has mental issues at the beginning of the story, And then at the end of the story, she actually is more coherent and can talk and function. I liked her more at the end than I did the beginning, but overall, I thought it was forced by King because, again, like the Zach McCool character, we needed some kind of conflict in the story. Otherwise, it would just been a boring flashback kind of thing. It's supposed to be a love story, and I get this. You definitely have two, husband and wife, and one is passed, and so there's definitely a love and a loss. But when they're doing the flashback or they're talking about their past or when it was dating and marriage and everything else, there's so many mentions to their sex life in this book that it's just it's like enough. Like I don't want to hear it anymore. It's really over the top. It almost reminds me of all the Trump references and COVID and masking and double vaccination crap that was in the book Holly. And so it really kind of deterred me from the story. In terms of score, I really struggled with this one because I was very harsh on Sleeping Beauties. And there's definitely parts in Sleeping Beauties that I think were far superior than in Lisey's story. I can't remember exactly my rating on Sleeping Beauties, but I think it was like a 1 something. I give Lisey's story a 3.0. I do that, and I struggled with it a lot, to be honest with you, because this is my 4th go around with this book. The first 3 times I couldn't make it past 150 in the page count. I think if it wasn't for the fact that this was the last book to read, to say I've read them all, I wouldn't have finished this book. I would have DNF'd it. And so it is what it is. I'm glad I stuck it out. I mean, I did like kind of the conflict and climax of the book a little bit. And I think that's where this kind of the score comes from. Whereas Sleeping Beauties was just, there was no payoff at the end. I didn't really feel like. But I did like some of the conflict throughout the story and the bits and pieces there more so than I did here. The retrospective look just wasn't for me. And I am a huge fan of some of that backstory stuff that King does, but it has to be slice of life. It has to be coming of age. I mean, this was just not worth it. So I don't recommend this book in terms of, I could recommend 30 other King books before I'd recommend this one. Again, 2 out of the last 4 King books I had to read were total misses for me. And so if I would have done the list of the worst King books, I mean, I think both Lisey's Story and Sleeping Beauties would be on that list. So, but anyways, hope you're having a great Friday evening. And that is my book review for Lisey's Story by Stephen King 3.0. Hope you're having a great evening. If you've read this book and you want to give me your thoughts on it, I'd love to hear from you. Other than that, I hope you have a great weekend. And there should be some more content from me coming. So talk to you later. Thanks.